how's it going? My name is Joseph. I just want to hop on here and just tell a bit of a story and kind of experience in my life that not too many people have really gone through, but enough people where I think that it's cool just to say a story about it and say what you've been through. So I'm 17 years old and I was adopted at the age of 3 and I was in foster care. So I just want to talk about my story and my struggles that I've been through up to 17 years, mostly recent, but I'm gonna get into it. So my story, just off the basics, is I was put into foster care due to my mother being into drugs and being into a lot of things, mostly just drug related things that basically got me taken away from the hospital because I was born 3 months premature, meaning I had a low life expectancy and all these things that came with it. But pretty much when that happened, I was put in foster care and I was put in the home and the guardianship that I'm in now with the parents who adopted me. Since I was 3 years old, I've been officially adopted and I've been in their care since I was about, I think 3 months old. So basically growing up, it was just kind of never really thinking too much of being adopted, honestly. I didn't think much of it at all. It was really just natural to me. Like I was just a part of the family. I didn't think much of it. Now I grew up not looking like the people who were my family, but honestly it didn't really matter because they took me in and I just never thought twice about it till I got older. So when things started to change up, I was about 13 years old. So when I turned 13, I was attending school, middle school. And then pretty much I came home one day and my adopted mom who adopted me was, which just to, like as an adopted kid, I personally look at them like my parents, like because I was in their care for the longest. So I don't really look at my biological parents as the parents who raised me, but the parents who made me, but they didn't raise me. That's how I look at it. But so pretty much, yeah, I was 13 years old. I came home one day and my mom was just like crying. I'm like, what's going on? So after a while, she tells me, she's like, your biological mom passed away. And I didn't even think about this ever happening. I didn't think about anything deep up to this point about being adopted. It was just how it was. I didn't think twice about it. I had friends go over my house sometimes at that age and they were like, why your parents white? Like all this stuff. And, you know, I just never even looked at it like that because my normal was what is normal to other people. You know, that was my normal. So I didn't think much of it, honestly, until people started asking me. And then when this happened, it was like, boom, it was a bombshell. Like things that started changing so fast in my head. Like I didn't know how to even like react. I just didn't know how to act to it. Like when I was told that, I just remember being 13, I'm 17 now again. And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I really wish I could have met her. And this thought, I wish I could have met her, it is mind blowing. The ramifications that came with this thought up to the point to this year. So when I had this thought, my immediate reaction wasn't sad. Honestly, it was pure confusion. I can't say anything else besides confusion. I was completely confused. I didn't know how to feel. And I was pretty much just shell shocked, honestly, that it happened. But then I started to really think back to certain times when I was growing up, and I'm like, I always had this like image in my head, excuse me, of basically meeting my biological mom or my biological parents. So the one biological parent that, you know, I knew wanted me and fought for me died. So I just went to this spiral like that day, like a bit of a, like in my subconscious, I was just going a little bit crazy. I can't even lie. I didn't know how to think. I didn't know how to feel about it. And then COVID happened. So I was in my house like everyone else for months and months on end. And that just didn't really help at all, honestly. It did not help me at all. Around 13 is when I started to get influenced by other outside things and just really like, you know, the world of getting influenced. You know, 13 is a young age and you start to get influenced. You get rubbed off around the things around you. So at this point, I became pretty susceptible to a lot of things because honestly, a part of my, like, like a part of me still to this day really just does not sit right with me that it all happened like that, because I knew that, I have letters that, well, I'll get to this in a minute, but pretty much, just to get back on track, I was 13, got the news that my biological mom died, and COVID happened. So then I went back to school in 10th grade, and I can't even really explain exactly what happened. It was like a flip switch that made me so careless when I heard this news at 13 that by the time I was 15, I was ready to act out. Like, I was really not a bad kid at all. Like, I really didn't get in anything. I didn't really cause any trouble like that. I wasn't really one of those kids. I just kind of put my head down and did what I had to do. Played sports, I was simple. That's all I really did, honestly. And I didn't really think too much about life. I didn't really think too much about even being adopted up to the time when I was 13, got that news. So boom, I'm 15. I'm going through all these changes, whatever, right? So I go to high school, and this is when I started getting into just addictions, basically. I started vaping. I started just smoking. I started doing, all these things. I started to basically just look at my family who adopted me, and I just didn't even look at them. I didn't even look at anyone around me. I hated everyone around me. I blamed everyone for everything that I had inside that I wasn't mature enough to really think of in a way to not act out subconsciously, but then consciously doing the wrong decisions over and over again. So 15 goes around, I'm like a freshman, something like that. I just go off the rails. I stopped doing, my priorities get all messed up. I stopped doing the things I love, and I started doing the things that I would say I never really did. So I started to get into all the things you could ever imagine. Basically, in trying to find myself, I went to the wrong places. And one of those was just smoking. That's pretty much all I did. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped focusing on anything positive, and I just focused all on negativity. And I was a negative-filled person for a long time, a very long time. And this ongoing, I had a bunch of addictions, and these lasted up to when I was about this year. Honestly, this year. It's crazy to think about how when something happened when you were 13, how it affects you all the way up to when you're years on later. So 4 years. And pretty much, the things I struggled with, which made me act out, was a lot of these thoughts where I didn't know how to express the way I felt when I was 13. So it came out later when I was, 15, 16, 17. And people were like, what's going on with him? Like, what's going on? What's wrong with him? He used to be this, lightful kid, and now he seems like he's just going down the wrong path out of nowhere. Like, it didn't make any sense to a lot of people. Looking back, it makes sense to me. But, because now I can understand it in retrospect and kind of see why I was thinking the things I was, why I was struggling with the things I was. But, pretty much, yeah, one of the struggles that I definitely faced with is feeling like a second option, just overall feeling like a second choice, because my parents tried to have biological kids, the normal way, which is the normal way, honestly, but they tried to have kids for a long time, and they were like, well, I guess let's just give adoption a try, because that's why we're gonna have kids, right? So I always had this in my head subconsciously that I was like a second option, that I was just like what you could end up with when you couldn't get a kid. When you couldn't have a kid, when it was, complications, adoption was just the last option. And it isn't the last option for a lot of families, but in my case, it ended up being a last option. And that's honestly what it was. And I struggled with that because I could not understand that. I could not have peace with that, because I felt like if my biological mom got right, that I would be normal because I would be with a biological parent. And I could never wrap my head around this. So all this happens. I figure out my biological mom died when I was 13. And then maybe, that year, and this is a big part of the story, that year is when I got in contact with my biological grandmother. And she texted my mom on Facebook or something, my adopted mom. And then I got in contact with my biological grandma for the first time, my first biological relative I ever got in contact with. And she's still in my life to this day. And we are like this, we're extremely close. I thank God that, God put some biological people in my life that are a positive influence. And got their lives right, and God selected those people who will be in my life, and the people who aren't my life are my life. That's how it is. But so pretty much getting to know my biological family was a huge step in my growth process with being adopted. And I got to know my grandma, like I said, and I see her a lot and we talk a lot. But this also came with my biological siblings, which I have a brother and a sister who are much older than me. They're in their 20s, but we started talking and everything. It was always tough because there was like this rift that you could just feel with my siblings. With my grandma, it wasn't there, but with my siblings, it was there. So I couldn't really like connect. Like I had problems connecting with them because they grew up so much different than I did, where so much lost time was made up. It's like we couldn't connect. Like we just couldn't connect. And if we did, there was always still like that part where it's like so much time was lost. It's hard to recover from that lost time to even get on that personal close level that siblings can get on from just growing up together. And it was tough. But pretty much, God's so blessed me with having those people in my lives and in meeting my biological grandmother. I got letters that my biological mom wrote. And this is kind of like hurt me inside because I was happy to be able to see them and see what she said about me as a baby. But it hurt knowing that someone, couldn't get their life right for you. So you end up having all these problems you go through, like depression and stress, because you think you're a second option and you think you're not really as important as, how I saw it as normal kids who weren't adopted. And that's how I kind of saw it, So pretty much at this point, I was reading these letters that she wrote to me, my biological mom wrote to me as a baby. And it hurt because I was like, man, if she could have just got, better, we could have that relationship that she wanted so badly with me. We could have that closeness that she wanted so badly with me. We could have got to know each other. She could have got to know me, the young man that I am now. And it hurts a part of me because it's like as I started to get to my biological grandma, I got to my biological mom, but getting to know her in all the videos and letters that I saw started to make me miss a person that I never remember meeting. And a part of me really wished that that could have met her. A full part of me wishes I could have met her completely. And it hurts to think about because it feels like, man, we were so close. Just a few years and, we could have maybe, met up or had a relationship. And it wasn't in God's plan though. And she never got off of drugs she was using, unfortunately, and her life was downhill and uphill until she died at the age of in her early 30s due to deterioration in her body, and her body just breaking down due to usage, never really stopping. And it definitely hurt a part of me knowing how close we would have gotten and how she wasn't like a biological parent that didn't want anything to do with their biological kid. She wanted something to do with me, She wanted to know me. She wanted to be in my life. She wanted to know me. And that part of me hurts because I really wish I could have got to know her too, honestly. And I had so many long nights and mental fights with myself over a lot of things with being adopted. And I've learned a lot. And I've definitely learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about why I had my struggles for a couple of years. And I'm able to understand a lot more than I was able to, back at the age of 13 when I figured this all out. Cause I didn't have anything figured out at the age of 13, You don't really have anything figured out, And sorry, it's a fly. And when my life was going like a steady pace, it kind of got abrupt, like with that news at 13, so I kind of spiraled downhill, and that stuff happened. And another part of this story, it's my biological dad. He was he had another family, and I was obviously I was a complete accident. That's how it was, and I never really felt bad about that, honestly. But he has another family, and I did some my fiance did some research for me, and she figured out that I have a cousin that lives across the street from me and an aunt. So out of nowhere, I like figured that out, and then maybe like a month ago, 2 months ago, I decided to go over there and basically say, hey, I am his name is Marco, and I'm like, hey, I am one of Marco's sons, and I'm adopted, and I live across the street from you. And it was like, oh, this is crazy. And the person, my cousin, seemed extremely nice and everything, and she's like, okay, I'm gonna tell my aunt this, and then we're gonna get in contact with Marco for you and all this. And I'm basically 100% sure now that none of that happened, unfortunately. It's all in God's plan, of course, so it was meant to happen, it didn't happen. But basically I'm pretty sure that he said, nah, that's not my kid, that's definitely not my kid, and chose not to reach out to me, which I knew was a possibility. So that's fine. Obviously, wasn't meant to happen, so it didn't happen. But that was my last biological parent that I could have gotten to meet, and he seems not want to do anything to do with me, which is hard. But at the same time, I think it's hard because in my head I'm like, I know the type of person I am. I'm like, when they want to get to know me, but at the same time, I gotta look at it from a different perspective, which is the hard truth that he's another family that probably doesn't know about me, and he doesn't want to disrupt his life with news of a biological kid to his family. And they were like, whoa, wait a minute. So maybe he cheated on his wife, or I don't know what's going on there, but I really don't know. I don't know, and I may never know, and it's hard for me to come to agreement with that with myself, but I may never know, and that's how it's gonna be. And I have to all I could do is thank God for what I do know and what is in my life, and what God chose to put in my life, which is my biological grandmother, my biological brother and sister, and that's what I thank God for. I thank God for that in terms of being adopted. And the last part of the story, God also blessed me with 2 siblings who are also adopted. I have a little sister and older brother who is my younger brother, but he's the middle child, and he's we're 5 years apart. But God blessed me with amazing family, and God blessed me with other adopted siblings who we all go through a lot of similar stuff, and we're all able to understand one another. Even at such a young age, we understand one another, and we have that companionship and that understanding with one another that we're not like all like every other kids. We're not like other kids. You know what I'm saying? A lot of kids look like their parents, and we don't look like our parents at all. People think that my baby sister, I'm the father. People think that wherever I go. So yeah, it's kind of funny. People think that my parents are the grandparents, and it's just funny overall. But God blessed me. At the same time, I'm grateful. I'm thankful. I'm not gonna take what God did put in my life for granted. I'm just gonna keep moving forward in my life and thank God for what I do have, and not ponder on what I don't have, because what I don't have I can't get, but what I have right now I could cherish. What I could do is just cherish it and taking every moment in my life. And if God chooses to put more people in my life that are biological, then that's not up to me, because I've tried to reach out, they didn't reach back out to me and my biological dad. So that's okay. I have to live with that. I gotta understand that things don't go around what I want. Things don't go according to what I want in my life. They go according to what God wants. They go according to what the universe has in store, and I don't get to choose everything. as unfortunate as it feels to know I'm not gonna be my biological parents, I come to understanding in this moment right now as I'm making this video, just because it just came in my head that it was all in God's plan, and I understand now that, you know, you can't control everything in your life, you know. And being an adopted kid, you're always gonna feel a little bit of an outsider, you know, looking in. But, you know, I'm learning to kind of just be comfortable with myself. I'm being comfortable with who I am as a person, and I know that my biological parents, even if I got to know them, that doesn't mean I find myself. You know, I find myself in what God told me to be, and what I know I know what I am, and meeting my biological parents wouldn't change that because I know who I am as a person, and that's not gonna change anything. So, thanks for watching this video.